from wherever you're watching us from, welcome to AMTV7's The Agenda with me, FK, as your host. Tonight, we have a number of guests on our online platform and we'll be delving into issues concerning religion. South African government says all churches will have to be registered into its database in order to be regulated. The church say this is impossible. Now the church could lose out on its existence if they fail to register as part of government's new policy. Now, to join me in the studio to discuss this, we'll be looking at what will be the impact of churches that fail to register and what will be the impact of organizations that are championing the cause of the church. Now, before we begin the discussion, I would like you to subscribe to our channel and do not forget to click on the notification bell so that whenever we do new videos, you'll be the first to get them on your phones, your tablets, your PCs, laptops, everywhere you are, you'll be able to get them. Now, before we start off the program, let's take a short break. We'll be right back.
We have a right of movement. We have a right of speech. We have a right of religion. This is our life.
Yes, we are tired of this thing.
The police are now moving to arrest this gentleman. Of course, they've been asking him to leave.
The church has undergone turbulence this year. It is the defining moment against what could be a total shutdown of the Church of God. Join us at 8 p.m. as we speak to religious experts about the new government decision over churches right here, AMTV7, tonight at 8 p.m. Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me. First and foremost, I want to find out, what is your concern as an organization? What is your concern about the decision of government to have churches registered? Let me start with you, Pastor Imran.
Yes, sir. No, thank you very much for having us, my leader. Primarily, our concern has been actually based on the inconsistency of the government at which they have actually demonstrated in how the government has related with the church in the couple of years. So our main concerns basically are these, that we have fears in terms of government basically trying to gather a database actually of the churches that which are in the country, with the intention to slowly push regulations, in which it's one of the issues that which we were also against in the past years. So our stance currently, they are based actually on how, as I said, on how the government has been relating with the church, in which it has tried to actually push things down our throats, and having not formally and respectfully consulted with the church in terms of such plans like the one that which has been tabled now. In fact, they went out and said that they will be closing 700,000 churches prior actually to the plans of the deputy minister to go on a national drive to propose and to inform pastors about the need actually to register. So it is such behavior and such reckless statements that are made on media from the government that actually makes us actually to be a bit skeptical in terms of their plans to make every church actually forcefully to register. Yeah.
But one will say that isn't it a good idea that you have a government that wants to have you on its database so that it's able to properly regulate how churches are run in this country?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. It is not a good idea. As I said, that with all the disrespect and the onslaught that which the church has been experiencing under government-based actually institutions like the CRL, for an example, So personally, I would not. And as an organization, I think that's the stance that which we have taken, that we will not actually allow the government to bully us to regulation. And I don't think it's a good idea, because personally, I believe that which church and state must remain separate. And what the government is trying to actually drive across us now is to forcefully regulate us, and due to such. So I do not feel that it is actually a good idea for churches actually to comply to the government's request on the basis that the government does not actually have the true interest of the church at heart. And I think history has actually made us aware of such behavior. So therefore, as an organization, we feel that the government's approach and what the government basically plans to do, it does not necessarily serve the true interest of the church.
Okay, Pastor
So
Adonis
it's not a good idea at all.
Pastor Adonis has just joined us. I don't know if he's still on the line. Pastor Adonis, let me come to you shortly. Why would you think government wants to do a thing like that? Is it because the church has been vocal, or what would have occasioned government to do such a thing?
No, it's not because only the church has been vocal. It's been a long planned exercise to regulate the church, due to the fact that South Africa has been turned into
okay, I don't know if Pastor Imran, can you come in? I was asking.
Yes, sir.
I was asking that why do you think government will make such a decision at this time? Is it because the church has been quite vocal over the past 12 months?
I think it's one of the reasons, but it's not something actually new, because this has been building up for years. Obviously, that the government has been using the CL, which is the Section 9 institution, actually as an instrument and as a weapon to launch actually the war against the church, to actually get us to a point where we are fully submitted to its demands. So I would say that it has been one actually of the contributing factors that the government basically it is somehow retaliating, because we have been on their necks for the past couple of months for the inconsistent application of the rule of law, and on how basically they have treated the church during this pandemic. So I would say that which in as much as it has been building up for the couple of years through CRL, now through this command council, that which almost ill-advised consistent ill-advised the government basically in involving the church in terms of the regulations and that which the government was put in place, in which it affected a lot of churches. And I think it's one of those things that which the government has been actually been doing, and they are consistently actually exposing their true intentions, their true colors, actually by coming out publicly and declaring that we are going to close down 700,000 churches. They still want to play this big brother kind of a thing, and that behavior as an organization we will not tolerate, in all honesty.
But why is the organization so concerned in terms of when we talk about church registration? What exactly does it mean? Why is there so much fear, if I should put it like that? Why is there some sort of fear when we talk about church registration?
Yes. Yeah. I think like I said, that our fear mostly it is based actually on the behavior of the government in terms of them using, actually, as I said, the CRL to try to regulate the church. So the intentions of the government in the past are contributing very much, actually, in terms of us not being comfortable with the idea of being compliant, you understand, with what they have actually proposed, and in which, as I said, their lack of consultation, their lack of the approach that which they have towards the church and the leaders, it is really concerning. And having in the past exposed themselves, having the intention to regulate the church. So our biggest concern is mostly on that. As pastors, as church leaders, I don't think that we have any problem with actually abiding by the law, and in which we have demonstrated during this COVID. And in observing every regulation in our church gatherings and stuff. We have a problem. Our main problem is the government that is trying to actually, with this militant approach that they have towards the church, and in seeking above all to subjugate us, in seeking above all to regulate. I think that is the main issue that which we have. So we are unclear of their motives. We are unclear of their true intentions, because now, as we have seen in the past, they have tried many ways. They've tried many ways by even using other organizations that had claimed to represent the interest of the church to try to push actually certain laws, to push what you call a particular message, as if it represents the interest of the church, in which in many times that has been proven not to be actually accurate. And due to such behavior, so as an organization, we are a bit skeptical, and we are uncomfortable in dealing with the government in that matter.
Okay, we have Apostlebalisso has just joined us from Cape Town. I'm sure that you might have been following the discussions. I want to find out, as an organization, what is your position on this particular subject? Because look, 700,000 churches is quite a lot of people who are going to be deprived of the gospel. Now, I want to find out from you, what are your thoughts, and what is your official position on this matter?
Thank you, sir. My apologies that I joined later. I'm not sure if you can hear me correct.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
I just want to add to what my colleague have just said. Number one, we don't have a problem for the government to say registration for the churches is important. But our problem is when the government is making it to be compulsory, of which that cannot be right, because as we all know that it is our constitutional right to worship God in our way, and to run the church in our way. So our problem is the issue of making it compulsory. Then number two, you can see for yourself that if government is saying they will close about 700 churches, it then tells you that because we have stood for our right to say church cannot be closed, and now government is trying by all means to chase the church, or rather to be against the church, because we stood our ground. And therefore, in my position, or the position of the organization, we are saying, number four, we are not consulted here, but rather we are instructed as if we are not an organization that deserves to be respected. So our view is that whoever would want to do anything with the church must consult with the custodians of the church, which is us as pastors. So we may not be against with the issue of registration, but we are against with the issue of making it compulsory. And we are saying any pastor who would want to register must do that voluntarily than to be forced to do that.
Now, coming back to what Pastor Abraham said earlier, he was saying that the organization is not prepared to deal with government. So in this case, how do you engage government in a dialogue to ensure that there is smooth deliberation in terms of how to come up for people not to be deprived of the gospel? How do we find a lasting solution to this current impasse that we are seeing between you and the government in terms of negotiations?
My response to that, probably to add to what Pastor Imran said, indeed, it will be difficult for the government to regulate the church because government may differ with our spiritual constitution, which is the Bible. So we would not allow, in any case, government to regulate the church. We as the organization, we are against that. But if we have to have a negotiation or a dialogue with the government, we will then say, government must engage us officially, as he does with any other organizations out there. Then we would reason with government and rather ask government to allow us to lead the church than for government to lead the church. So we would not close the door to have a dialogue or to negotiate with the government, but we would only say, government, we are the called by God. Therefore, allow us to run our business and also to make sure that we comply where there is a necessity. But we cannot allow a situation where we are forced to do what is contrary to what the Bible says as to how do we run the church, because government don't really know how to run the church as per the book of Acts. So definitely would want to take a lead in that cause.
Okay, Pastor Adonis has joined us. Pastor Adonis, can you hear me, Pastor Adonis? From Kabeja in the Eastern Cape. Can you hear me clearly now? We're still having a problem with your network. We're still having a problem with your network. We can hear you clearly. So back to coming back to you, Apostlebalisso. Now, when we look at what is happening currently in terms of the current impasse between government. Okay, I see Pastor Adonis. Okay, it's just gone off again. The current impasse between government and the church. We have seen time and again, the protests that happened in Cape Town. So many things have happened between government and the church. Now, how do you facilitate a smooth transition between the church and government? How do you ensure that there is a win-win situation for both sides of the coin? Because government holds a strong view. Look at what the negotiations that happened before the Easter, that church wanted 100%. Government said, no, we have 50%. And so how do you regulate? How do you ensure that we have a win-win situation for both sides of the coin? Yes, Pastor Apostlebalisso, you can take it over.
Can I respond?
Yes.
One, the church is led by the pastors, which then we would want to have a smooth running by convincing or telling government by the systems that we have in place, that of organizing ourselves as the church. That's number one. Number two, you have spoken about the marches that we have conducted.
Yes.
To Parliament in the Western Cape.
Yes.
Specifically, I'm the provincial convener of that work this side. So the smooth running would come only when the government responds to our memorandum that we have forwarded. We have given them 2 memorandums. On the 5th of February, we handed over our memorandum, and then again for the second time we did. and we never received any response from anyone in government, of which our memorandum is specifically stipulating the every detail of what we would want to do and what we would want government to do for us.
Do you
And
think
also
government
to
does
make
not
sure that
care?
we
Do you think government does not care?
I can tell you bluntly that government don't care about the church as long as government don't respond to our memorandum and to our cries. And if government can close the church as they want, then we are saying we feel that government don't care for the church.
What position would your organization, Pastors Against Church Closure, take? I think we have Pastor Adonis back on video. Can you hear me clearly now?
Very clearly, sir. I've been hearing all of the conversation.
Okay. Can you briefly tell us your thoughts in a few minutes, what we have discussed so far, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Now, on the last question that you asked, I wish to contribute by saying we have types of leadership in the country. We've got your political leadership. We also have got your traditional leadership. We also have religious or faith leadership. Those are the three main components of leaders we have. Yeah. What you get in South Africa is that politicians do have their own legislatures, their parliament, where they regulate and make laws for the country. In that process, they consult with traditional leadership. There are House of Traditional Leadership in all provinces, even in the local government, even in the National Assembly, there's a House of Traditional Leadership. But the missing link here is the House of Faith and Religious Leaders. And the stats will tell you that South Africa is mainly a Christian country. So we are saying, if the government wants to regulate the churches, you must not make a campaign by doing bypasses, calling few individuals. We are also coordinated. Let's be consulted properly in a way of engagement, because they would co-opt some very few types of leaders, which they would say they represent the church. In the true sense, those people are in the pockets of the politicians. So they will dance for everything politicians say. So once we are coordinated, because we've got charismatic churches, mainline churches, and Pentecostal movements, churches. So once we have a clear representation of faith or house of faith leaders or religious leaders, then every decision that is taken by the government, we also and issue our own recommendations, so that when the regulations are passed in Parliament, are also having a fair share on the decision of the country.
So coming back to you, Apostlebalisso, just before we wrap up, now, what is going to be the stance of Pastors Against Church Closure with respect to government's new position on registering of churches? What is your cash? What is going to be the breaking point for you to say that we are instructing the churches not to register, or we are going to have the churches register as the government has stipulated?
Our constitutional right, which is a fundamental right to religion, is not limited to registration. So we would therefore stand and say we cannot allow government to do as they please or to make it compulsory for us to be registered. Remember, church cannot be church because of registration. Church is church as per the book of Acts. I'm not sure if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah. So therefore, we are saying we are clear of what government is doing. At the same time, we are clear of our right as per the Constitution. So therefore, we are saying it cannot be a compulsory thing to be done. Therefore, we will then have to still maintain our position and then see how do we pave the way. But we don't agree with the compulsory of it. That's our position. So we cannot allow a situation whereby churches are going to be closed because they are not registered. Based on what? Because that's non-constitutional in the first place. So therefore we would disagree. As the organization, we would disagree strongly with that.
Have you thought about any plans or actions if government decides that you're not going to heed to your call of deciding not to register or to register? Have you, as an organization, have you had plans of saying we are going to protest against it, or what exactly are your plans?
So at this point in time, we don't necessarily have plans that are in place, but we know that once government does something that is contrary to the constitution, then obviously we would have to approach the constitutional court on that if government imposes that to us.
Okay, Apostle Adonis, I don't know if you're still online, but if you are not online, I'll carry on with Apostlebalisso to give us his final words before we wrap up for tonight's section. Okay, we're going to have to go back to Apostlebalisso to give us your final word just before we wrap up for tonight about what has been discussed so far. I think you have given us your thoughts on it, but your final words concerning this issue and the church in general, as we have seen some turbulence, as we have seen some fracas between the church and government for the past 4 months or so.
All right. Can I come in, sir?
Yes.
All right. My final words would be, one, as the pastors against the church closure, we are calling to all the pastors to unite and stand together for what is right to us. And number two, we wish to tell our government that we are not fighting with government. Rather, we are standing for what is our right. And we have been, as pastors, as the church, we have been praying for government. We have been doing a lot of work in the ground. And therefore, we are saying we cannot be excluded. And as Pastor Adonis have said it correctly so, to say we deserve to be respected. We need to be called in and have a house that will deal with our issues so that we can continue with life normally as we used to be. But we cannot keep quiet and say all is well, even if we know it's not right. And lastly, we are saying church is a spiritual hospital. That we have got, if not 80% of people that have got a life in church, that can get their counseling in church, that they can get their hope in the church. So how do you close church? So we are saying, government, we're not fighting with you, but we are saying, come to the table, organize yourselves, and then open a space for us where we can be able to deal with the issues of the church, where we can look at the smooth way of approaching the whole matter. And we are saying this registration cannot be a limitation, because how do you close 700 churches? So you cannot say now our right is limited, because a church is not a church because it's registered. A church is a church because somebody somewhere have answered or responded to the call of God. So we understood fully what a calling is about. Therefore, government must come to us. We can explain the business of the church. We love our government, we respect our president, but we cannot allow a situation whereby church is going to be dictated, yet other organizations like your traditional leaders and other organizations are respected. So we are saying we deserve to be respected.
Gentlemen, I think we have to leave it here. So much thanks to you, Pastor Apostlebalisso from the Western Cape, Pastor Imram Makama from Mpumalanga, and Pastor Adonis from Klebeha in the formerly East London in the Eastern Cape. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on our show, and we hope to speak to you some other time, probably shortly, for us to discuss other issues concerning the church. Thank you so much and have a good evening.